the sound that never stops. Inside San Quentin, some say it's the air vents. Others say it's the screams of men who lost their minds here. But tonight, that sound isn't coming from the vents. It's coming from cell 13, the one that's supposed to be empty. A man sits on the cold concrete floor, whispering to himself. His name is Marcus Lee. He hasn't spoken a real word in months, only whispers, and that long, shaking breath that never ends. The guards avoid that hallway now. Even the new ones learn fast. This is San Quentin, the prison that turns men into ghosts. And Marcus Lee is about to become one of them. Welcome to San Quentin. Before the whispers began, Marcus was just another man trying to survive a bad choice. He was a warehouse worker from Oakland, quiet, steady, and tired of being broke. One night, a friend talked him into robbing a corner store. Nobody died, but the clerk got hurt. That mistake earned Marcus 12 years inside one of America's toughest prisons. When the bus doors opened that morning, he stepped out into a sea of gray walls and razor wire. San Quentin stood like an ancient beast, still, silent, and watching. The guards didn't speak. They didn't need to. The sound of chains and slamming doors said enough. Marcus was sent to East Block, 3 cells away from death row. That's where he met his cellmate, Raymond, a thin man with hollow cheeks and eyes that never seemed to blink. The first night, Raymond leaned close and whispered, "Whatever happens after lights out, don't answer the knocks." Marcus laughed it off. But at exactly 3:13 a.m., he heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow hits against the wall behind his bed. He froze. The sound came from the other side, from cell 13. But that cell, he later learned, had been sealed for years. When he asked a guard who was inside, the man just stared at him and said, "Nobody. Don't talk about that cell." The whispers' days turned into weeks. The knocks came every few nights. Then, one evening, they changed. Instead of knocks, Marcus heard breathing, and then his own name. At first, he thought it was a dream. But when he pressed his ear against the wall, he could hear words, faint, broken, but clear enough to understand. They were repeating things he'd said earlier that day. Jokes, phrases, even sighs. It was like something, or someone, was listening to him and speaking back. Raymond noticed the change. He told Marcus to stop listening. But Marcus couldn't. The voice grew louder each night, and every time he ignored it, it called his name longer, slower. By the 4th week, Marcus stopped eating. He'd just sit on the edge of his bunk, staring at the wall. The guards started calling him the Echo. Solitary, they moved Marcus to solitary confinement, hoping isolation would calm him down. But that cell was worse. The walls were close enough for him to touch both sides at once. No window, no light, just the faint yellow glow from a vent. At night, he saw faces in that glow, faint outlines that shifted and blinked. He tried not to look, but one night, one of them spoke. "You should have stayed quiet." The next morning, a guard on patrol heard 2 voices inside Marcus's cell. He opened the hatch and shined a flashlight through the bars. Marcus was standing in the corner, his hands flat on the wall, whispering something again and again. The guard leaned closer and heard the name, Raymond. They pulled Marcus out. He didn't resist, didn't even blink. On the wall behind him, carved with his fingernails, were 3 words. "He's still here." The vanishing Marcus was taken to the infirmary. Doctors said he was breathing strangely, shallow, uneven, like he was copying someone else's rhythm. They sedated him and left him under watch. But the next morning, Marcus was gone. The door was still locked, the bed untouched, and on the floor near the vent, they found a folded paper. It had Raymond's name written on it. The guards rushed to East Block. Raymond was sitting on his bunk, staring at the wall. When they called his name, he slowly turned his head. His eyes were bloodshot and empty. And when he spoke, his voice wasn't his own. It was Marcus's. He said he was lonely. The guards froze. Then Raymond started to laugh, low, hollow, and wrong. The sound echoed through the block, and the lights flickered. Other inmates began shouting, terrified. Some said they saw someone standing behind Raymond. A blur, tall, motionless, with no face. When the guards tried to restrain him, Raymond's head dropped forward. He whispered one last time. "He's back in cell 13. The door, one of the younger guards, a rookie, decided to check it himself. He walked down the long corridor towards cell 13. Every step echoed like metal against bone. When he reached the end, he saw the old cell door, rusted, locked, untouched for years. He hesitated, then aimed his flashlight through the slit. Inside, the cell looked empty. But there were fresh handprints on the wall, smeared, white, and new. And under the vent, scratched deep into the concrete, were the words, "He's not gone." The rookie turned to call for help. But before he could speak, a voice came from inside the cell. Low, calm, familiar. Do you hear it too? He froze. The air grew heavy, thick, like the whole hallway was breathing with him. He slowly stepped back, his flashlight shaking. The voice came again. Don't answer the knocks. The light flickered and went out. The blackout the hallway fell silent. The rookie stood frozen in the dark, his heart pounding so loud he could hear it echo. He tried to call for backup, but the radio only hissed with static. Then, 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. They came from inside cell 13. He took a shaky step backward, staring at the door. The sound came again, louder this time. Not wood or metal, but something hollow, like a hand hitting bone. He turned and ran. By the time he reached the control room, the entire east block had gone dark. Power failure. Every light, every lock, every door, dead. For the first time in decades, San Quentin was completely silent. The warden was called in from home. No one could explain it. The backup generators refused to start, and even the guards' flashlights flickered like dying candles. Inmates began shouting in their cells, banging on doors, terrified of the dark. One of the officers swore he saw movement near the sealed wing. Another said he heard whispering, dozens of voices, all saying the same thing over and over again. He's not gone. Inside the chaos, the rookie sat shaking in the corner, clutching his radio. He kept repeating, I saw him. He spoke to me. But when asked who he was, the rookie couldn't answer. The warden ordered a full lockdown. Guards were sent with lanterns and flashlights to check every cell. When they reached the end of East Block, the sealed section was open. The lock was still attached, but the metal had twisted, bent outward, as if something had forced its way through from the inside. The cell door hung slightly open, just enough for one person to slip through. The first guard who looked inside screamed. The others rushed in with lights, but the cell was empty. Only the words on the wall had changed. Now, written over the old message, were fresh scratches, he's free. Before anyone could react, the lights flickered back on, bright, sudden, and blinding. When their eyes adjusted, they noticed something else. The hallway, which had been empty moments ago, now had footprints. Bare feet, wet, leading away from cell 13, toward the main cell block. The warden followed the trail slowly, his flashlight shaking. The prints went on for almost 50 feet, then stopped, right outside Raymond's old cell. Inside, everything was quiet. The bunk was empty. Only one thing remained, a folded piece of paper sitting on the floor. It said, he wanted company. The warden looked up. From somewhere down the hall, the lights began to flicker again. Then came the sound, that slow, steady breathing that never stops. It spread through the corridor like a wave, filling every cell, every vent, every space. And then came the whisper, faint but clear. Don't answer the knocks. The man in the mirror the next morning, the cell block was quiet, too quiet. Even the guards whispered as they passed row D. Word had spread fast about what happened in the shower room. No one wanted to talk about it out loud, but everyone knew. Another man had vanished. Malik sat on his bunk, staring at the tiny mirror bolted to the wall. His reflection looked pale, hollow, like someone had drained the life from him overnight. He touched his face. His skin was cold. That's when he noticed something strange. In the reflection, behind him, a shadow moved, slow and human-like. But when he turned around, the cell was empty. He blinked hard. Maybe it was his mind playing tricks. But then the air changed, colder, thicker, like the space itself was closing in. He felt a whisper brush past his ear. Just one word. Soon. Malik jumped to his feet, eyes darting around. The light flickered once, twice, then steadied. But when he looked back at the mirror, the reflection didn't move. It stood still, watching him. Panicked, Malik rushed to the bars and called for the guard. But no one came. His voice echoed through the corridor, swallowed by the walls. That night, he didn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the reflection, staring back with empty eyes, waiting. By sunrise, his cellmate found him sitting exactly where he'd been all night, whispering something over and over under his breath. Don't look in the mirror. Don't look in the mirror. The guards took him to the infirmary, but they didn't find anything wrong. No injuries. No drugs. Just a man who looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. But one of the guards noticed something odd on the mirror after Malik was moved. Faint handprints, small and pale, pressed from the inside of the glass. That was the moment everyone realized. Maybe this place wasn't just breaking men. Maybe it was trapping something else inside them. And deep within San Quentin's walls, another prisoner began to whisper the same thing Malik did. Don't look in the mirror. The ghost of the prison had found another voice. The night of whispers that night, San Quentin felt alive, but not in a human way. The air carried faint sounds that didn't belong. Soft murmurs floated through the cell blocks, drifting from one corridor to another like a slow-moving fog. The guards blamed the plumbing, the wind, the imagination of men locked away too long. But the inmates knew better. The whispers had words, names, confessions, even laughter. In cell D-12, an old-timer named Reggie was the first to speak up. He'd been inside for 22 years and had seen everything. Riots, fires, death. But never this. He leaned out through the bars and called to the others. Y'all hear that? That voice, it's Malik. Everyone froze. Malik had been transferred to the infirmary 2 nights ago, completely broken. But now, his voice was drifting through the halls, calm and distant. Don't look in the mirror. Over and over. The men began shouting, banging their cups on the bars, trying to drown the sound. One of the guards stormed down the row, yelling for quiet. But the second he reached Reggie's cell, he stopped. The whisper wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside the walls. Reggie backed away, eyes wide. Man, what is this place? He said under his breath. The guard radioed it in, but before anyone could respond, every light in the block flickered and died. The corridor fell into total darkness. The air turned freezing cold, and from deep within the silence came the sound of slow, dragging footsteps. No one could see, but everyone could feel it. Something was walking past their cells. Something that wasn't supposed to exist. When the lights finally came back on, the footsteps stopped. Everything looked normal. But Reggie's face went pale when he looked down. On the concrete floor outside his cell door were bare footprints. Wet, and leading straight toward his bed. He whispered to himself, shaking. They said this place turns men into ghosts. Guess they meant it. The other inmates stayed silent that night. No one slept. But just before dawn, one guard swore he saw a figure standing in front of the control room window, pale, still, and watching. When he blinked, it was gone. But the glass stayed fogged, as if someone had breathed against it. And written in the mist were 2 chilling words. The disappearing cell. By the next morning, panic had spread like wildfire. Reggie refused to leave his bunk, muttering to himself that the walls were breathing. The guards tried to calm the inmates, but even they looked uneasy. Something inside San Quentin had changed, and everyone could feel it. Around noon, a new guard named Torres was assigned to cell block D. He'd heard the stories, but he didn't believe them. He thought the inmates were just trying to mess with him, the rookie on duty. He began his rounds, tapping each bar with his baton. All good, he'd say one by one. But when he reached cell D-13, Malik's old cell, he froze. The door was wide open. Inside, everything looked normal, bed neatly made, floor spotless, mirror shining. But when Torres stepped in, his radio began to crackle. A soft, static voice came through. Don't look in the mirror. He turned around instantly. Who said that? No answer. He looked back at the radio. It was dead. Not even static now. Then, he glanced at the mirror. And what he saw made his knees go weak. The reflection showed the cell, but not him. Instead, it showed Malik, standing exactly where Torres was. His eyes were empty, face pale as smoke. Malik raised his hand and pressed it against the glass from the other side. Torres stumbled backward and ran out, slamming the cell door shut. His supervisor came running. What's wrong? He asked. Torres pointed. There's someone in there. Malik. I saw him. But when they opened the cell again, it was empty. Completely. Later that day, during count, another guard noticed something worse. D-13 was missing from the official records. The logbooks skipped straight from D-12 to D-14. Even on the system computer, the cell didn't exist. It was as if the prison itself had erased it. By evening, Torres had quit. He didn't even wait to collect his things. But before he left, he told one of the other guards, "If you ever hear whispering in that block, don't look in the mirror. Just walk away." The next night, the new guard assigned to D block heard it too. A faint whisper, right around midnight. "Come closer." When he turned toward D13, the light above the cell flickered once, then went out, leaving the darkness to breathe again. And somewhere, from deep inside that cell that shouldn't exist, came a quiet, broken laugh. The warden's secret by now, San Quentin, was unraveling. Inmates refused to shower. Guards quit mid-shift. And every night, more whispers filled the air, louder, closer, impossible to ignore. Warden Holbrook, a man who'd worked the prison for 30 years, tried to keep it under control. "There's no such thing as ghosts," he said at a press conference. But behind closed doors, he wasn't so sure anymore. One night, long after lights out, Holbrook went down to cell block D himself. He wanted to see D13, the cell everyone was talking about. The guard on duty tried to stop him, but Holbrook brushed him off. "If a cell's causing trouble, I'll handle it." When he reached the corridor, everything was silent. The air smelled of damp concrete and rust. His flashlight beam wobbled as he walked. But when he got to the spot where D13 should be, there was only a wall. He frowned. "That's impossible," he whispered. "This is the right spot." Then his flashlight flickered and died. The beam vanished, leaving him in total darkness. He hit the side of the light. Nothing. That's when he heard it. A voice, right behind him. Low. Familiar. Calm. "You shouldn't have come here, Warden." Holbrook froze. His throat tightened. "Who's there?" The voice answered again, closer this time. "You built this place on pain. Now it's alive." The warden spun around, pulling out his lighter. For a second, a dim orange glow filled the space, and his jaw dropped. The wall wasn't a wall. It was a door. A metal one, half buried under fresh concrete. Carved faintly into it were dozens of names, scratched by hand. The last name at the bottom was Malik. The warden stumbled back, heart pounding. He reached for his radio. "Control, this is Warden Holbrook. I need a team in D block. Now." Static. No response. Then the metal door groaned. It began to open, slow, scraping against the floor. A freezing wind rushed out, and the whispers returned, swirling around him like a storm. Holbrook dropped his lighter. The flame went out, and in that darkness, something stepped through the doorway. He could only see its eyes, pale, glowing faintly. And as it moved closer, Holbrook heard the same phrase that had haunted the prison for weeks. "Don't look in the mirror." The warden screamed. By morning, he was gone. His office still had his badge on the desk, and his car was parked outside the gates. But no one ever saw him again. And in the records, one more thing had changed. Under Warden Holbrook, his status was updated. Location, D13. The vanishing count after the warden's disappearance, San Quentin fell into chaos. The state sent in a new temporary commander, Captain Morris, a strict man who believed in order above all else. He dismissed the ghost stories immediately. "Prisons breed rumors," he said. "You all need sleep, not superstition." To prove his point, Morris ordered a full inmate count that same night. Every cell, every name, one by one. Guards moved through the blocks with flashlights and clipboards, calling out numbers into the dark. But when they reached cell block D, things went wrong. The count started smoothly, D1, D2, D3, until they got to the middle of the row. The guard hesitated. His voice cracked as he called out, "D13. Silence." Morris frowned. "Skip it and continue," he ordered. But as the guard marked D14 on his sheet, a low whisper came through the intercom system. It was faint at first, then clearer. "Present." Every guard froze. The voice was calm. "Human." "Who said that?" Morris demanded. "Identify yourself." No answer, only static. Then, from somewhere in the block, a loud metallic clang echoed, the sound of a cell door slamming shut by itself. The power flickered, and every light in cell block D went out at once. Guards shouted, radios screamed with static, and through the chaos, they heard it. The same whisper, but now dozens of voices layered together. "Present." When the emergency lights came back on, one guard was missing. His flashlight was still rolling on the floor, spinning in circles. They searched the entire block. Every cell, every corridor. Nothing. No sign of him. Until one officer pointed at the records sheet, the section where D13 should have been blank. But now it wasn't. There was a new entry. Occupant, Officer J. Reeves. Morris's face went pale. He tore the sheet in half and shouted for everyone to leave the block immediately. But as they rushed out, the last guard to exit glanced over his shoulder and saw something that froze him in place. The cell door marked D13 was open, and inside stood a man in a guard's uniform. He wasn't moving. He wasn't breathing. And when the lights flickered again, he was gone. The next morning, Captain Morris requested to shut down D Block entirely. But before the paperwork went through, he disappeared too. His car was found at the gate. Keys still in the ignition. Inside the prison logbook, next to D13, a new note appeared in shaky handwriting. One that no one admitted to writing. We're all still here. The final lockdown after Captain Morris vanished, the state had no choice but to declare a full lockdown. No one in or out. Cell block D was sealed, lights cut, doors welded shut. Officially, the reason was maintenance and safety. But everyone inside San Quentin knew the truth. D Block had become something else entirely. A week later, a small team of state investigators arrived. Engineers, electricians, and one prison historian named Dr. Lauren Hayes. She'd studied San Quentin's archives for years and believed there was something buried in its history that no one wanted to talk about. When she arrived, the prison was silent. Even the guards refused to walk past the D Block corridor. Hayes led the team down the hallway, their flashlights slicing through the darkness. The air grew colder with every step. She stopped at the spot where D13 should be, the wall that had replaced it. "This isn't original construction," she said quietly. "It's been sealed over." The lead engineer frowned. "You mean someone built over a cell?" Hayes nodded. "Probably decades ago." She brushed away the dust on the wall and saw something that made her hand shake. Under the grime were faint words scratched into the concrete. "They're still in here." The team exchanged nervous looks. One of the men laughed uneasily. "Probably just inmates trying to scare us." But then his radio crackled. "Don't look in the mirror." The group froze. The signal wasn't connected to the prison network. They were using a private frequency. "Who's transmitting?" Hayes asked, gripping her radio. "Identify yourself." The radio hissed again, and this time another voice came through. Low, tired, familiar. "Warden Holbrook." Hayes went pale. "That's impossible." Before anyone could respond, the wall in front of them groaned. Cracks spread across the surface like veins. A cold wind poured through as the concrete began to crumble, piece by piece, revealing a rusted metal door beneath. Exactly where D13 had been. The engineer stepped forward, trembling. "Do we open it?" Hayes hesitated. "No, not yet. Too late." The door creaked open on its own. A thick darkness spilled out, swallowing their flashlight beams. And from within that darkness, they saw something move, faint shapes, dozens of them, flickering like smoke. They weren't inmates. They weren't alive. They were faces, men's faces, pale and hollow, staring back through the black. One of them stepped closer to the threshold. It looked just like Malik. His mouth moved, whispering the same warning again and again. "Don't look in the mirror." The lights in the corridor exploded all at once. When power was restored hours later, the entire investigative team was gone. Only their equipment remained. Cameras still recording, pointed at the open doorway of cell D13. On the last frame, before the video went dark, faint writing appeared on the wall behind the door. "This is not a prison anymore. It's a mirror." The prison that turns men into ghosts. Weeks later, San Quentin reopened its gates to the public record. The official story claimed the incident in cell block D was due to a gas leak, which caused hallucinations and panic among inmates and guards. But no report explained why the blueprints now skipped directly from cell D12 to D14, or why every digital record of cell D13 had been erased from the system. Dr. Hayes' camera was eventually found in the prison's evidence room, the memory card damaged. But a single audio file survived, 22 seconds long. It began with heavy breathing and ended with a whisper. "Don't look in the mirror." After that, the state quietly sealed Block D for good. The hallway leading to it was bricked off, and guards were ordered never to patrol that side again. The official logs now mark it as a restricted wing. But some nights, when the fog rolls in from the bay and the lights flicker across the yard, inmates still swear they hear voices echoing from behind the wall, soft, tired, and endless. Sometimes, The guards hear it too. A low whisper carried by the wind. Present. And if you stand outside that sealed corridor long enough, some say you can see faint handprints appear on the concrete, as if someone or something is still trying to get out. San Quentin was built to hold men. But somewhere along the way, it started keeping their ghosts. The prison that turns men into ghosts still stands today, quiet, cold, and waiting. If this story sent chills down your spine, hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell. More untold prison stories are coming.